Welcome to Miss Scarlett. Subscribe and don't miss out on Patreon. Have fun! As the final marketing campaign numbers appeared on their screens, Brody and Jessica's competitive spirits ignited. The office was filled with the electric energy of a friendly wager about to unfold. In a burst of spontaneity, they shook on it. The outcome of their bet held surprising consequences. Brody, known for his traditional approach, asserted, "I believe in the power of printed ads. So, let's put it to the test. I'll gladly accept a challenge if you dare." With a mischievous grin, Jessica extended her hand, already savoring her potential victory. Agreed! At 32, he'd built a reputation as the most driven executive at Mitchell & Partners. He thrived on competition, but this was too much. Nobody at work can know about this, he insisted, picking up a pair of nude pantyhose with his fingertips as if they might bite. Relax, Jessica laughed. It's Saturday. We're just going shopping and to lunch. Consider it market research into the female demographic. An hour later, Brody barely recognized himself in the mirror. Jessica had worked methodically, applying foundation that masked his stubble, contouring his face to appear softer, and adding mascara that made his eyes look impossibly large. The wig is the final touch, Jessica announced, carefully positioning the auburn hairpiece over his natural hair. It fell in soft waves past his shoulders, framing his transformed face. Brody stared at his reflection. The stranger, staring back, wore a pink blouse tucked into a fitted black pencil skirt that hugged unfamiliar curves created by the shapewear Jessica had insisted upon. Nude pantyhose made his legs look surprisingly shapely. "Meet Nyla," Jessica declared, standing back to admire her handiwork. "I always thought you'd make a pretty woman."
"This is humiliating,"
Brody grumbled, though secretly he was stunned by how convincing he looked. The reflection didn't show a man in women's clothing. It showed a woman.
"These heels are impossible,"
he complained, wobbling slightly on the modest 2-inch pumps Jessica had mercifully chosen instead of the stilettos she'd initially threatened.
"You'll get used to them. Now, let's practice your voice."
By the time they left the apartment, Brody had mastered a softer speaking voice and a hesitant walk that disguised his discomfort. His heart pounded as they entered the elevator, where an elderly neighbor smiled pleasantly. "Good morning, ladies," the woman said. Brody froze, but Jessica nudged him.
"Good morning,"
he replied, his practiced voice holding steady. Outside, the autumn sun warmed the sidewalk as Jessica led him toward the mall. "See? Nobody can tell," she whispered. "Just relax and enjoy the experience." Relaxation seemed impossible as they entered the crowded shopping center. Brody felt exposed, certain everyone could see through his disguise. Yet, as minutes passed, then hours, a strange realization dawned on him. Nobody gave him a second glance. He was invisible in a new way, not as a power-suited executive commanding attention, but as just another woman shopping on a Saturday.
"I need to sit down,"
Brody murmured after their third store. The shoes pinched, but he'd grown accustomed to the gentle sway of the skirt against his legs and the soft weight of the wig brushing his shoulders. They found a table at a cafe in the center of the mall. As Jessica ordered for them both, Brody noticed a man at a nearby table checking him out. The realization was jarring but oddly affirming. "You're getting quite comfortable as Nyla," Jessica observed, passing him a latte. Brody adjusted the blouse self-consciously.
"This whole thing is bizarre, but I'll admit, it's not as terrible as I expected."
"The clothes feel nice, don't they?" Jessica asked knowingly. He hesitated. The truth was, the soft fabrics against his skin felt luxurious in a way his stiff suits never did. The pantyhose created a strange, constant sensation that was not unpleasant. Even the light makeup felt somehow freeing rather than constraining.
"They're different,"
he conceded. After lunch, Jessica insisted they visit a women's clothing store. "Since you're being such a good sport, you should pick something out. My treat."
"Absolutely not,"
Brody protested, but found himself drawn to a navy blue dress with white trim. "That would look stunning with your coloring," the saleswoman commented, appearing beside them. "Would you like to try it on?" Brody panicked, but Jessica intervened smoothly. "She'd love to." In the dressing room, Brody's fingers trembled as he changed. The dress slipped over his head in a whisper of fabric, settling against the curves created by the shapewear. When he emerged, Jessica's eyes widened. "Wow, you need to see yourself." The mirror revealed a transformation even more complete than before. The dress emphasized his narrow waist and the padding Jessica had helped him position. With the auburn wig and careful makeup, he looked entirely convincing.
"I'll take it,"
he heard himself say. That evening, back at his apartment, Brody carefully hung the blue dress in the back of his closet while Jessica packed up her supplies. "Well, you survived," she said, zipping her bag. "Bet fulfilled." Brody nodded, oddly silent. After she left, he sat on the edge of his bed, still wearing the pink blouse and skirt. He should have been eager to change back into his comfortable clothes, to wash away the makeup, to return to himself. Instead, he walked to the mirror again, studying the person reflected there. Nyla looked back at him, her expression uncertain. Brody reached up and touched the auburn hair that wasn't his, yet somehow felt right framing his face. He should take it all off, end the charade. Instead, he slept that night with the makeup still on his face. Monday morning arrived with its usual demands. Brody slipped back into his executive armor, charcoal suit, blue tie, polished Oxford shoes. Yet as he sat through meetings, he found himself distracted by memories of soft fabric and gentle sway. His collar felt restrictive, his shoes clunky and inelegant. During lunch, he made an excuse and slipped away from the office. A different mall, where nobody from work would see him. The women's department welcomed him with bright lights and colorful displays. He moved through the racks with purpose, selecting items that matched his newly discovered preferences. A green blouse with pearl buttons, a cream-colored skirt, a simple black dress that could be dressed up or down. The saleswoman didn't blink at his story about shopping for his sister. He paid cash, hiding the evidence in nondescript bags. That evening, he closed his blinds and unpacked his purchases. The clothing lay on his bed like forbidden fruit. Brody hesitated only briefly before stripping off his work clothes and reaching for the items he'd bought. He had no shapewear, no wig, no makeup. Yet the simple act of slipping the blouse over his head sent a wave of calm through his body. He looked ridiculous, he knew, a man's face above women's clothing. Yet the feeling overrode the image. Something about the gentle pressure of the fabric, the freedom of the skirt, spoke to a part of him he'd never acknowledged. The next day after work, he stopped at a beauty supply store in a different neighborhood. The saleswoman was helpful, assuming he was buying gifts. Foundation, concealer, mascara, blush. He remembered everything Jessica had used. At another store, he found an auburn wig similar to the one he'd worn on Saturday. Not as high quality, but good enough. By the end of the week, his secret collection had grown. Evenings became a ritual. Come home, close the blinds, transform. He learned from YouTube tutorials how to apply makeup, how to style the wig, how to walk in heels without stumbling. Each night, becoming Nyla washed away the stress of Brody's day. Weeks passed. Brody excelled at work, his presentations more confident than ever. Colleagues commented on his improved mood. Little did they know that beneath his success lay a secret that would shock them all. "You seem different lately," Jessica remarked one afternoon as they reviewed quarterly numbers. "The bet didn't traumatize you after all." Brody kept his expression neutral. "It was just one weird day. Ancient history." Yet that evening, as he carefully applied mascara before a quiet dinner alone in his apartment, Brody acknowledged that something fundamental had shifted. Nyla was no longer a humiliation or a character. She was becoming a vital part of him. A month after the bet, Brody made a decision. A weekend away, just her, in a city where nobody knew Brody Mitchell, marketing executive. She booked a hotel room in Philadelphia, packed a suitcase with carefully chosen outfits, and boarded a train on Friday evening. In the hotel bathroom, the transformation was thorough. The auburn wig, now of better quality, framed her face naturally. The makeup had become second nature. The black dress hugged curves enhanced by proper shapewear. When she stepped out onto the streets of Philadelphia, Nyla walked with a confidence Brody sometimes lacked. Dinner alone at a small Italian restaurant. The waiter called her ma'am without hesitation. A glass of wine, a perfect pasta dish, and a sense of peace that felt revolutionary. The weekend passed in a blur of small pleasures. A museum, where she lingered over paintings, shopping for a pair of earrings, coffee shops where baristas smiled and never gave her a second glance. By Sunday evening, returning to her apartment, Nyla realized she had spent 48 hours without a single person questioning her presentation. Monday brought the harsh reality of Brody's world crashing back. The suit felt like a costume now, the tie a noose. He moved through meetings mechanically, his mind elsewhere. In the restroom, washing his hands, he caught his reflection and hardly recognized himself. That evening, becoming Nyla felt like coming home. Weeks turned to months. Brody's apartment became Nyla's sanctuary. His closet gradually transformed, men's suits pushed aside to make room for dresses, blouses, and skirts. He invested in better wigs, all auburn to match the first one, and quality makeup. Weekends became Nyla's time, with increasingly bold forays into the world. The dual life took its toll. Brody found himself resenting the hours spent as someone who felt increasingly foreign to him. The need to hide exhausted him. The fear of discovery created constant anxiety, yet returning to life solely as Brody seemed impossible now. The breaking point came unexpectedly. A company retreat, 3 days at a mountain resort, with the entire marketing department. Brody packed his male clothing with growing dread. 3 days without becoming, Nyla felt like a prison sentence. On the second night, alone in his hotel room, he cracked. From the bottom of his suitcase, he withdrew a small makeup bag and the auburn wig, packed in a moment of weakness. Just for an hour, he told himself, just to feel normal again. The knock came as he was applying lipstick. Brody froze, wig in place, face made up, wearing only his undershirt and boxers. "Brody, it's Jessica. We're all heading down for drinks. You coming?" "Just a minute," he called, his voice betraying him. Silence. Then, "Brody?" He closed his eyes, heart hammering.
"I'm not feeling well,"
he managed, voice strained.
"Going to skip tonight." You sound strange. Are you okay? Do you need anything? I'm fine. Just... His voice cracked. Please go away. Another pause. I'm coming in. You have the adjoining room, remember? We share a door. Panic surged through him. The connecting door to Jessica's room. In his distraction, he'd forgotten to ensure it was locked. The door handle turned. Brody lunged toward it, but too late. The door swung open, and Jessica stood frozen in the threshold. Time suspended as they stared at each other. Jessica's eyes widened, taking in the auburn wig, the half-applied makeup, the nail polish on his fingertips. "Oh," she said finally. Just that. A small sound that contained multitudes. Brody couldn't speak. Shame and relief warred within him, the secret exposed at last. Jessica stepped into the room, gently closing the door behind her. "How long?" she asked softly. "Since the bet," Brody whispered, unable to meet her eyes. "It never stopped." Jessica sank onto the edge of the bed. "Every day?" "Most evenings. Weekends. He struggled for words. "It's the only time I feel like myself." Understanding dawned on her face. "You're not just cross-dressing for fun, are you?" The question hung in the air. Brody had never allowed himself to examine the depths of what was happening. Cross-dressing had been a safe word, a container that kept bigger questions at bay. "I don't know what I am," he admitted. "I just know that being Nyla feels right in a way that being Brody never has." Jessica nodded slowly. "Nyla," she repeated. "You kept the name I gave you." "It fits." For a long moment, Jessica was quiet, processing. Then she stood and approached the bathroom vanity where Brody's makeup was spread out. "Your foundation is too light for your skin tone," she said matter-of-factly. "And you're applying blush too low on your cheeks." Brody blinked in surprise. "That's your response?" Jessica turned to him, eyes gentle. "My response is that if this makes you happy, truly happy, then I want to help, starting with fixing your makeup." Tears threatened, blurring his vision. "You're not disgusted?" "By what? By you finding something that brings you peace?" She shook her head. "I'm just sad you've been going through this alone." That night, they skipped the company drinks. Instead, Jessica helped complete Nyla's transformation, offering tips and techniques Brody had never discovered on YouTube. They talked for hours about when the feelings had started, earlier than the bet, Brody admitted, though he'd never acknowledged them, about the double life, about the future. "What happens now?" Brody asked as midnight approached. Jessica considered this. "That depends on what you want, doesn't it? Is Nyla a part-time comfort, or is she who you're meant to be full-time?" The question lingered in Brody's mind through the remainder of the retreat and in the weeks that followed. With Jessica now an ally, the burden lightened somewhat. Having someone who knew both sides of his life created a bridge between worlds that had been strictly separated. Jessica began joining Nyla for weekend outings. They shopped together, had lunch, visited museums. She never pressured for answers about the future, but her presence made the question impossible to ignore. 2 months after the retreat revelation, Brody sat in his therapist's office. Finding a gender-affirming therapist had been Jessica's suggestion, one he'd resisted initially but finally embraced. Dr. Harlow listened without judgment as Brody described his double life. "Many people experience gender as a journey, not a destination," she said. The question isn't what label fits you. The question is what life allows you to feel authentic and whole. When I'm Nyla, I feel like I'm breathing freely for the first time, Brody admitted. But the thought of losing everything I've built as Brody terrifies me. Those aren't necessarily mutually exclusive, Dr. Harlow pointed out. Many people transition and maintain their professional lives. It's not simple, but it's possible. Transition. The word both frightened and beckoned. Was that what this was moving toward? Brody had avoided researching, afraid of what he might discover about himself. Now, with Dr. Harlow's guidance, he began to learn about options, about others who had walked similar paths. Spring arrived, bringing change to the city and to Brody's life. The hours spent as Nyla lengthened. The discomfort of returning to Brody's form intensified. Increasingly, even alone in the apartment, Nyla remained. The auburn wig stayed on until bedtime. The makeup became more subtle but constant. Women's loungewear replaced old sweatpants and t-shirts. At work, Brody maintained the expected image, but small changes crept in. His suits were tailored differently, his manner softer. He grew out his natural hair, drawing a few comments but no serious questions. Jessica remained steadfast, a confidant and guide. "Whatever you decide," she assured him, "I'm in your corner." Decision came gradually, then suddenly. One morning in April, Brody stood before the mirror, preparing for work. The auburn wig waited nearby. Male clothing lay on the bed. The routine of transformation stretched before him. Becoming Brody for the day, counting hours until he could return to Nyla. "I can't do this anymore," he whispered to his reflection. That day, he requested a meeting with Human Resources and his direct supervisor. Hands trembling, voice steady, he explained his situation. The HR director, a woman in her 50s, listened with professional composure. "The company has policies supporting employees through gender transition," she explained when Brody finished. "We can develop a transition plan that works for you and the company." His supervisor, initially stunned, recovered quickly. "You're our top performer, regardless of how you present. We'll make this work." Relief flooded through him. The worst fears, rejection, termination, humiliation, had not materialized. Instead, he found support, albeit cautious and corporate. The transition plan unfolded over the following months. Hormone therapy began, subtle changes appearing gradually. Brody's wardrobe shifted incrementally at work, subtle women's cuts of business attire, growing hair styled in increasingly feminine ways. The company made announcements, held sensitivity training. There were awkward moments, confused pronouns, uncomfortable stares, but also unexpected allies and moments of validation. Through it all, the auburn wig remained a constant, covering Brody's growing hair until it reached a length and style that matched Nyla's vision. The day he donated the wigs to a cancer charity marked a milestone. His own hair, now long enough to style, had taken on the auburn shade that had come to define Nyla. 1 year after the fateful bet, Nyla stood in her apartment, preparing for work. The marketing director position she'd earned 3 months ago came with a new office and expanded responsibilities. Her cream-colored blouse and charcoal pencil skirt projected professional confidence. Her auburn hair fell in soft waves past her shoulders, framing a face that hormone therapy had gently reshaped. The doorbell rang. Jessica waited outside with coffee and bagels, a Friday tradition. "Ready for the presentation?" Jessica asked, stepping inside. "Born ready," Nyla replied, accepting the coffee gratefully. "The new campaign is going to knock their socks off." They reviewed notes over breakfast, the easy partnership of close friends and colleagues. When they finished, Jessica helped Nyla clear the dishes. "Do you realize what today is?" Jessica asked. Nyla paused, thinking. "Friday the 15th? It's exactly 1 year since our bet." Jessica smiled. "The day Nyla was born." The realization settled over her. A year since that terrifying, transformative day. A year that had changed everything. "Best bet I ever lost," Nyla said softly. "I knew you'd look good in pink," Jessica teased. "Though I didn't exactly foresee all this." Nyla laughed. "Neither did I, but I can't imagine any other path now." They gathered their presentation materials, preparing to leave for the office. At the door, Nyla paused, glancing back at the apartment that had witnessed her transformation. From Brody's bachelor pad to Nyla's stylish home, from a place of hiding to a space of authenticity. "Sometimes I wonder," she mused, "who I'd be if you hadn't won that bet." Jessica considered this. "The same person, I think, just still locked away where nobody could see her." Nyla nodded, knowing it was true. The bet hadn't created her. It had simply opened a door she'd been afraid to approach. "Thank you," she said simply, "for seeing me before I could see myself." Jessica squeezed her hand. "That's what friends are for. Now, let's go crush this presentation." Together, they stepped out into the spring sunshine, Nyla moving with the confidence of a woman who had found her place in the world. The black heels that had once felt so foreign now carried her forward with purpose. The auburn hair caught the light as she walked, head held high toward the future she had chosen. The bet had been just the beginning. The journey, her journey, continued, each day bringing new challenges and unexpected joys. But underneath it all ran the constant, sustaining truth. She had found herself. And having discovered that truth, there was no going back, only forward, into the life that had been waiting for her all along.
Thanks for watching, my girlies! Be sure to check out Patreon for more!